Welcome back to our Week 5 recap. And here with me today, my co host Justin, and I'm Ian. And let's get right on into it this week with, the crazy shakeups from Week 4. Week 5. So, for Week 5, what we have going on is we have Vincent versus Ethan. Vincent taking the win over Ethan. David taking the win over Josh. Zach taking the win over Chris. Roman taking the win over me. Justin winning over Alex. Aiden winning over Caden. Kyler winning over Jacob. And Titus winning over Hunter. Justin, eventful week that we have going on here.
Yeah, there was a lot of close games this week.
Absolutely. Lots of close games, lots of important games. We're looking at a very close playoff race, and, this next upcoming couple weeks, it's going to be, we're going to be starting to fill out that playoff bracket that we're going to be seeing this season.
Absolutely. And I think that there's just so much hope, obviously, for teams who are currently on the outside looking in, that they were able to make the playoffs. But there's a lot of fear for the teams who are currently in the playoff picture because they know a couple of weeks go wrong for them and they're out. All right, their ass is going to Cancun for the summer.
Absolutely, nobody is safe as of yet, and it's anybody's game. Anybody can make it into the playoffs still, even if some of them will need a miracle to do so. So let's hop in and let's look at the most interesting matches of this week, Justin. What do you think was probably the most interesting match on the schedule for this week?
We talked about it during previews, and to be quite frank, it didn't quite deliver to how everyone thought it was going to turn out. We, of course, are talking about the Milwaukee Milk Tanks, led by Coach Josh, getting smacked down by the Dallas Steel Wings and Coach David. An absolutely monumental win here for Coach David and his entire staff. Famously, Coach David has been unable to beat Coach Josh throughout the many seasons that this league has been going on. I believe he was 0-4 going into this match.
I believe that's correct, yes.
0-4.
It's been a tough time for David in these against Josh, and this is an incredible way that he won. He broke out with a win with a 6-0 gouging fire, absolutely decimating Josh.
Absolutely, the breakout star of this week. You don't see a lot of 6-0s. I famously, everyone was clowning me on Twitter because I said that Hawlucha might have been the only 6-0 sweet Pokemon we were going to see for the rest of the season. Gouging Fire hit me in the DMs after this game and was like, how about Hawlucha, huh? Where's he at? Okay? And so, Gouging Fire, a lot of people were questioning Coach David's methods and his system. A lot of people thought that Gouging Fire was capable of a lot more. And Coach David wasn't building his team properly to fully utilize him. But this week, he saw the weakness. He saw the hole in the Milwaukee Milk Tanks roster. And by God, David came out there and he coached a great game, and Gouging Fire, what an excellent performance. One for the ages, truly.
Absolutely, and it's a huge win for him too, because as we said last week, both of those teams were tied for playoff contention, and with that win, David puts himself at 3-2 with a +5 differential, which is a huge deal for playoffs contention. Especially with him literally taking out the competition in Josh, who was at the a 2-2 at 0. So same record. David comes out on top. Huge game.
Buys him a lot of space. Buys him a lot of he gets a breath of fresh air. Gets to be a little relieved. Not so stressed out for these last couple of games. Obviously, he still has to come out. He still has to coach a well played game, but that +5 point differential makes all the difference in this league.
Absolutely, and it'll be a big deal, especially with our upcoming playoffs looming ever closer. And Justin, we have another very important game that we can look at here,
Absolutely.
out of the schedule. And, it has to be the one that everybody was talking about. Everybody was going
Yeah.
crazy seeing this game in action. And, man, it had to have been potentially best game that we've seen all season.
It feels like we see that every week, but that's just how good these teams are playing each from week to week. It just feels like every week there's a new best game of the season, and it's just so exciting to watch.
Absolutely. And, of course, I'm talking about Zach versus Chris. The Miami Dolphins versus the Orlando Magikarp. Both Florida teams taking the stage that week, and came down to the wire. 1-0 victory for the Dolphins there, and Deoxys Speed. Wow, what a performance!
Listen, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Deoxys Speed. Okay, when you're talking about clutchness, when you're talking about clutch, when the game's on the line, right, and you have to take the shots and you have to make the shots and you have to do what's necessary. Everyone else on your team is down. It's all up to you. All eyes are on you. The lights are bright. Cameras are recording. And Deoxys Speed didn't even blink. My brother was on fire. Literally. He was burning. He was burnt. He was losing health every single turn. He had to hit a 90% move 3 times in a row, which we've seen that doesn't always happen in this league. Not only that, last hit, it's him facing straight down the barrel, and he has to hit a crit. And what does he do? What does he do?
Incredible.
He nails it. Hits a critical hit. There's not a lot of mons in this league that can claim that they are. Well, a lot of them can claim that they have the clutch gene in them, but Deoxys Speed just proved that he can walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Absolutely, it was an incredible game and an important one to keep the Dolphins in the playoff contention, specifically because of how our standings have shaken out. Justin, let's head down to those and take a look, and we'll start at the top this week. We got the Phoenix Ferrets still sitting pretty at first place, 4-1. We also have 6 Dittos at 4-1 with +9. Justin, we finally get to see the Ferrets take a loss.
Yes, that was a definite an upset victory. Not a lot of people saw that one coming, but Roman brought a good team, well matched up, played a great game, and took advantage wherever he could, and it was a scrappy win, but he put together a really good win, and all of a sudden, people are starting to look at Big Stepper as a possible true playoff threat.
Yep, and I still don't think that he's got a long ways to go. He's got a lot of important games to win. He's still 2-3 with a -5 differential, so he's kind of on the outside looking in, but he has a good chance of potentially winning some games with some good differential, and he can make it in. I still think that the Phoenix Ferrets and Sick Dittos are perfectly positioned to make playoffs. It's going to be hard for either of them to miss at this point. A single win, I believe, will easily lock them into it. So, I think that those two are still sitting pretty this season, Justin.
Absolutely. They came out blazing hot, and now I don't want to say they can coast, but it's going to take a very strange lineup of events for them to not make the playoffs at this point.
Absolutely. I expect to see both of these teams within the next couple of weeks before Week 8 lock in a playoff berth. So
Absolutely.
I don't expect to see either of them miss that out. Back to the standings, we also have our 3-2 bunch, which is all the way from number 3 to number 7. We got Why Not Us, the Dallas Steel Wings, the Driftfield Rangers, the Houston Haunters, the Los Angeles Chargebugs, all sitting at that 3-2 marker. Differential matters in this pack here, Justin.
Absolutely. One of these teams is not like the other.
Yeah, the Chargebugs do have the negative differential, but I think the one that we should talk about first, though, is Titus and the Why Not Us at +10. It's a lot of differential.
I mean, when he comes to play, when his team is feeling it, so to speak, they just roll. All right, they roll, and that ability to win by a huge margin has bought them a huge point differential and a lot of space to maneuver coming towards playoffs.
Absolutely. Since it's looking like the bar for entry to playoffs is roughly going to be about 4-4 with a positive differential, it's going to take a lot for them to actually miss as well. I think they're a shoe in to playoffs as well. The rest of our teams, they're probably going to need, the middle of the pack. We got the Rangers, the Steel Wings, the Haunters, and the Haunters. All of those probably need to, they need to either win by decent differentials or lose by lower differentials, or win a majority if they're gonna, sneak into the playoffs here. Whereas the Chargers, yep,
Coach Caden better get his team together.
Absolutely, going from 3-0 to 3-2 very quickly. It's kind of pulling a reverse Coach David right now.
Some are saying that he might not get a single win for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Speaking of for the rest of the season, Coach David, people seem to be thinking that he's not going to lose for the rest of the season.
I mean, listen, he's a talented coach, and as we keep talking about, he only gets better throughout the course of the season. And look, you look at the rest of the schedule, it is not easy. He is not out of the thick of it yet. Of course, he plays you this week in your Phoenix Ferrets. But then he has the Houston Haunters, a very, very stacked roster led by Coach Aiden the week after. Then ends the year against Why Not Us and Coach Titus. That is not an easy lineup, Ian.
No, all three of them in the positives, and all three of them at least his record or better. So he's going to have to bring his A game for the rest of the season if he's going to win out. But
absolutely,
as Coach David has shown, he absolutely can hang with the best of them, especially
he always finds a way.
Especially in the second half of the season. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And then finally, in our 3-2 pack, we have the Los Angeles Charger Bugs, coached by yourself, Justin. Then 3-2 with -4. You're looking better than some teams, but that negative differential may haunt you in the future.
Absolutely. Big mistakes led to big losses. And even though I only have two of them, we lost we didn't put up a big enough fight. And so now, we really have to focus on winning the game and hopefully trying to shrink that point differential gap.
Absolutely. Or just, hitting 5 wins. If he can win 2 of his last 3, the 5-3 is a very solid potential playoff margin.
Absolutely.
The other thing that he will have to watch out for is those wins where he's only getting about a point of differential. I think it's less about those big losses and more about those small wins. Two games where he only wins up 1 is a little tough. And, hopefully he can get it together by the end of the season. You guys can get it together by the end of the season.
I hope so.
Now let's go to the bottom half of the. Let's go to the bottom.
2 and 3.
Yeah, a lot of 2 and 3 teams here. We have Colorado Avalanche at 2-3-0-0 and the Field Team 6 at 2-3-0-0. We'll start with just these two. Justin, this looks like they look like they're not doing. They're hanging in there,
both easily have the ability to win a couple games and make playoffs easily, especially with that 0-point differential. That's a very good place to be in.
Absolutely, it'll help them out. One thing they're gonna have to win at least twice though. You're not gonna make it with only one, so they do have to go 2-1 for the rest of the season. But I mean, somebody has to make it in that last spot of neutral differential. So.
I look at these two teams for the rest of the season. They might be fighting for that 8th seed.
Absolutely. And personally, my money happens to be on Coach Jacob. I think that the Field Team 6 have a decent shot of, of pulling those 2 wins out, especially with the remaining of their schedule. being a little bit on the easier side comparatively to Coach Alex or other teams. So
Absolutely. I think obviously it's hard for people to forget last season when discussions about Coach Alex arise, but he's clearly turned it around, and I'm excited to see where he goes.
absolutely, and hopefully we get to see some good sets from both of them. Both of them end up playing Hunter at the bottom of the league, so hopefully they can capitalize on one of the easier matchups if the scoreboard is to be believed. So, moving right along, we have the Federal for Alligators, the Orlando Magic Carp, at that 2-3 -2 differential, tied for 10th place. Justin, I'd say this is a very similar story to Coach Alex and Coach Jacob.
Absolutely. -2 is pretty easily overcome point differential, so they're not that far behind Coach Jacob and Coach Alex. But as we will be discussing, and as we have been discussing, one nasty loss, and that is pretty disastrous at this point in the season.
Absolutely. All it takes is one. And, it goes either way, though. One big win could really take them into contention. But I think both of them will need 2 wins at the bare minimum to make playoffs. So we'll see what comes of that. And then following up, we have the bottom half of the schedule, the very bottom of the league, with 2 teams at 2-3 -5 and two teams at 2-3 -8. The Big Steppa, Milwaukee Milk Tanks, Miami Palafins, and San Francisco Arcaniners, all being the final 2-3 teams. Justin, I think we both know the big story here is the Milwaukee Milk Tanks sitting at 2-3 -5.
It's unconventional, unexpected. This is one of the winningest coaches in the league.
And not anymore.
Man.
Not anymore.
Tough.
He is still like top 3 or 4, but I don't think he's claiming that second spot anymore. So,
man, it's been an odd season for Coach Josh. I know his team is still with him. They still believe that they're playoff contenders. And it's going to be that heart, that attitude that gets you into the playoffs at this point, because this team is going to have to play hard every single week. He's going to have to bring the best strategies, and it's hard, even when he's down here all the way at the, towards the bottom of the leaderboard. It's hard to argue with history, and it's hard to bet against Coach Josh, but we're definitely teetering on the edge of it might be over.
Yeah, a couple big loss here, and it's going to be tough to make it back, especially if the bar is 4-4 negative or positive. So he's going to have to take at least 2 decently sized wins of the upper half of 4, 5, and 6, and a decent loss if he wants to stay, or a decently small loss if he wants to go 4-4. So he has a little bit of wiggle room, but not a lot. Mm-hmm. As for the other coaches down here, still anybody's game. A couple big wins, and they can make it back. But yeah, and then go ahead, Justin.
I just wanted to transition into the bottom. 1-4, -15 with Planet of Annihilates.
That's exactly what I was about to say, Justin, because this is the reverse of the top of the league, actually.
It is. Look at that.
Yeah. Whereas I feel like the Phoenix Ferrets easily have the pretty easy chance of making playoffs here. They'd be hard-pressed not to. This team needs to be perfect for the rest of the season if they want a shot. And when I mean perfect, I mean they literally have to lose less than 2 Pokemon the entire season for the remainder of the time if they want to make a playoff berth, if the bar is 4-4-0.
I think at this point in the season, I think it's unhealthy to your players to keep the same expectations that you came into the season with. I think at this point, look, he's a new coach, so not making the playoffs is not a big deal. You're new to the system, new to this league, the format, all these different things. And at this point, it's all about getting in that locker room, talking to your players, and being like, "Listen, I know we are not 1-7 bad. We are not that bad. Let's get a couple more wins here to end off the season. Let's try to win out. But to expect to make the playoffs at this point, obviously, it's still possible, like you said. But I think at this point, restructure the expectations in the building, and I think that will lead to a more positive product at the end of the season when looking back.
Absolutely. I think the focus from this point on should be improvement. Coach should experiment, learn some things about draft.
Absolutely.
But playoffs I think it's a far-fetched dream at this point, especially with the remaining of your schedule being easiest, hardish, more middle of the pack teams you have to play, which is winnable, but frankly, with the differential you have to overcome, it's too much. So,
Yep.
yeah, and that's all we got for standings this time around. So, Justin, let's take a look at the transactions from this week. The last set of transactions that we're going to have to go through this season, as this was the transaction deadline.
Yeah, not as much a buzz around the transaction deadline as I thought there'd be. We only have 2 teams making moves, and one of them just promoting a player that they already had, so not really making a move.
Absolutely. Let's go over them real quick. We have actually let's start with Jacob. Making the real quick one. Spiel is now a Terra captain. He had the extra points for it. That's probably the only reason. And let's move on. We got Roman dropping Skarmory, adding Garganackle, dropping Cinderace, adding Ogerpon Hearthflame, dropping Wobbuffet, adding Sableye, and swapping Terra captains of Primarina to Thundurus Incarnate and Tinkaton to Garganackle. Justin, what a Terra captain change we have going on here. This is a lot for this point of the season. Any mons that you're excited that were added to this team?
I like to see Garganackle in there. I think he has just insane wall capabilities. And if you're able to give him a good set, it's hard to get rid of him. And he could be a problem. And I think I'm excited to see how Roman implements him into his system.
Absolutely. As a former Phoenix Ferret, I have all the endorsements for Garganackle, even if it was for only half of a season. But he treated me quite well. So, very powerful Pokemon. And adding Terra Captain to it, incredibly powerful. Teams will have to be starting to look at this team and go, I might have to bring Covert Cloak to stop that Purifying Soul, or that Sulkier. And, just having that prep added to the other team's plate, it's a big... it's a lot of value for a single Pokemon to bring.
Absolutely.
And with that, let's go ahead and move on to our schedule for next week. For week 6, we have Vincent versus Josh, Zach versus Ethan, me versus David, Justin versus Chris, Aiden versus Roman, Kyler versus Alex, Titus versus Caden, and Hunter versus Jacob. We'll bring this up very quickly. Multiple of these are potential elimination matches.
Yes.
And while we won't go into depth about it, Hunter and Jacob is... Hunter can get eliminated very easily in this matchup. Or it can also be eliminated just by other people playing well. Certain teams can just take him out at this point. So it all depends on how that game goes for Hunter if he wants to stay in the playoffs. This week is critical. However, I think there's a couple more interesting games that we could be talking about for what's going on this week. And I think the one that is at least on my mind this week for people staying in the playoffs, Justin, is Ethan versus Zach.
Yeah, the San Francisco Arcaniners heading on down south to South Beach to play the Miami Palafins. Listen, I'm not saying I'm hearing the music, but I think there might be some sound waves coming from down there in Florida. Zach, for those not paying attention, has won his last 2 games. The week after, we were talking about him potentially throwing his hat into the ring for worst season ever. All of a sudden, some folks are saying he might make a comeback.
Absolutely.
And I think it's possible because he's definitely been playing a lot better since those first 3 games.
Absolutely, and he has the team to do it. He's a very strong team, and his remaining schedule isn't easy, but he's playing games that he could potentially win too. So I hope to see at least continue. He needs 2. He needs 2 for sure if he even wants a chance of being considered for playoffs. Whereas Ethan is in the same boat. He needs 2. Both these teams are 2-2 at -8. So whatever team loses here is in a tough position, especially if it's a big win. So
I think this week is imperative for both these organizations. They both have to come at this like it's an elimination playoff game 7. They have to come in with that mindset of we win this or we're out. Because both these teams have the ability to make the playoffs. It's going to be tough, but both of them have the ability. But losing this game,
it's over.
That's not going to put you in a good spot for it. So, very different teams, both rookie coaches. Very excited to see how these coaches react when their back's against the wall. They're in a corner. It's time to see their fight or flight responses come out.
Absolutely. We've seen, Zach is familiar with this position at this point. 3 straight weeks, basically, or 2 straight weeks where he's been, back against the wall and trying to figure it out. So, yeah. Hopefully, I'm excited to see this game, and it'll be a close one for sure. And Justin, what do you think is an interesting game that we got going on this week?
Basically another elimination game. We got Josh and the Milwaukee Milk Tanks. We got the Milwaukee Milk Tanks, coached by Coach Josh, going over and facing off against the Federal Alligator by Coach Vincent. This is, we were talking about Coach Josh earlier, experienced vet in the league, but he's teetering on the edge of playoff elimination. And so this game's very important for him. And if rookie Coach Vincent wants to make a playoff run, starting off your latter half of the season with a win against a coach like Josh, that's going to set you up very nicely.
Absolutely. And, this is the kind of team that Josh has historically not been great against. Newer teams, teams with worse records. This is just a combination of things that I don't know if Josh can overcome. I smell an upset here, and I'm calling my shot that Vincent will take this game.
Wow. Did everyone hear that? That's crazy. That is calling a big shot there. Yeah. I'm just eyeing this Josh team, man. This Milwaukee Milk Tank roster has so many heavy hitters.
Absolutely, and I agree that in a vacuum, I think Josh's team is better. However, I think that Josh will not take his team to victory this week.
Wow.
So,
listen,
it's all about
when you have
the coach
Goober on your team,
sometimes.
when you have Goober and Amungas on your team, anything's possible. So I guess Coach Vincent in the Federal for Alligators, I guess that's a safe bet.
Yeah, it's all about the coach sometimes, and
as you've seen from the Driftville Rangers.
Absolutely, a team that probably would be better if coached by a better coach. And,
listen,
it's the same case.
I would go on the limb and say, if the Driftville Rangers were coached by Coach Titus, they might be undefeated at this point. Okay, and if the Why Not Us were coached by Coach Caden, they might be fighting in line for plane tickets to Guangdong. All right, so they might be rubbing on their nose before the plane even takes off. So
yeah, so that's all we got for this week. Yeah, we will go ahead and close it out. One last thing before we get going. We're going to go take a look at the MVP race for week 6.
I mean, looks very different. Changes just about every week. Hawlucha's still at the top.
Yeah, but he didn't improve, interestingly enough.
No, it was not brought this week. That was an interesting choice.
And Coach Jacob perhaps suffered for it. Every win that he has been at the hands of Hawlucha, so I'm a little concerned that perhaps the team is relying heavily on Hawlucha, like I had mentioned earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And if we look at the other interesting additions, we continue to see Chien Pao towards the top. We see Heatran staying at the top. Urshifu Rabbit Strike still up here. New to the
Gouging
top.
Fire.
New to the top, we have Gouging Fire. We have Deoxys Speed, and we got King Gambit climbing pretty high as well.
I mean, Gouging Fire went from 0-1,
6-0.
you know,
Or 6-1.
to now 6-1, number 7 on the MVP race. About a comeback, you know?
Absolutely.
Crazy.
I also want to point out something rather interesting, that throughout this entire league, there isn't as many as previous seasons of Pokemon that are high kill, as in over 10. We have a few that look like they're going to get there with like Tapu Lele, Heatran, Chien Pao, King Gambit, Excalibur, and Hawlucha. Hawlucha's already there, but a few of them. Whereas, with half the amount of players as we had with double the amount of players we had last season, it does look a bit odd to see, just about as many 10-kill Pokemon as we did before.
Yeah, it seems like the talent has been spread out a lot more. I was looking at the at Pokemon stats page earlier, and the kills across the teams are just spread out so much. You don't see a lot of, oh, this Pokemon has 13 kills, and the rest of my team has like 3 combined. A lot more spread out, a lot more teamwork, and I think that goes to show that it seems that this season it's more focused on the game plan by the coaches rather than the star power from the Mons.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really good thing. I think that's a sign of a lot of improvement in the league, and if you're not seeing, and like in both of the directions, right? The team that's playing the star power Mons are, utilizing them a bit less and having other options start to shine because of the star power Mons, and the other side is prepping for those star power Mons better. They're able to quell them and at least move on to the next option to take a win. So
definitely think it's a good sign from the front office. I think it's healthier for the league. So that way, when we do jump between generations, the fans aren't following for the players, for the Mons to see high powered action. They're coming for the coaches and for the teams to see how they fit together in a scheme and who could come up with a better system and strategy.
Absolutely, and with the seemingly drop in power level for next season. As we return to Paldea decks for the first time since Season 2. We'll be seeing a lot of new and exciting strategies. So we will see with that as it goes. Any other things in the MVP race that you want to bring up? I do have one that I want to bring up. We had clowned on Darkrai a couple of weeks back, where you had mentioned that he was right below Alola at like 157 or something. Pulling that number out of nowhere, so, could be wrong. And look at him now, he's positive. He took a 4-kill game, he's now 6-4, +2 at 24th in the league somehow. What a jump. 130 spots, basically, in a week.
Yeah. I mean, it's the game that myself and everyone knew Darkrai could have. And I'm just glad I was able to put him in a position to where he could succeed. Obviously, I felt bad for the amount of pressure I put on him being the last Mon against three is staring down the barrel of three very good Pokemon for Coach Alex's Avalugs. But man, he showed out, and I'm excited to move forward with the rest of the season and see just how much more he could be involved in the team.
Absolutely. But a lot of new Pokemon, too, have gotten the chance to sign this season.
True.
Hawlucha definitely was not doing this well in any previous season that it's been in the league. Bax has had success in the past, so has King Gambit. Chien Pao is obviously the most decorated mon of all time now. Heatran was actually incredibly powerful as well. Urshifu hasn't been like a prominent part of the league really ever, so that's good. Annihilate also is fairly new. Sneasler was the most dead Pokemon of all time before this season. So yeah, he had the biggest negative. He had the most negatives of all time with like negative 14, 15 or something as a sweeper. I think he had like all of 2 kills over 4 seasons. So,
Glad to see Coach Ethan trying to dig him out of that hole.
It's a start. Plus 4 to that is still like negative 9. He's not that much better, but it's it's at least it has one good season under his belt, right?
Absolutely.
And Clefable is also down there, but Clefable is normally a utility mon, so that's fairly expected from him. Bastiodon at 6-4 is a sight to behold, I suppose. All right, so I think that'll be it for this week. We'll wrap it up here, and we'll see you guys next week with a weekly recap on Week 6. And there'll probably be a ton, and I mean a ton of playoff news that week with, just even people not making the playoffs would be news at that point. There will likely be people knocked out of it, and we'll keep you updated. So,
Yep.
All right, well, good luck in your matches this week, and we will see you next week.